Hello everyone, it's me Uncle John. Today I am going to read at 66066, Amazing Magnetism, Chapter 7. With a soft thumb, full ended. I could smell leftovers from your yesterday's lunch. Stay calm, class. We have hit bottom. Yes, the bottom of the trash can. Carlos, is that you? Do you still have the remote? Asked Miss Frizzle. Got it, I called back. Now press the button with a picture of a little person on it. I looked at the remote. There were all sorts of interesting buttons with interesting pictures, but I figured now was not the time to experiment. I found the button with a picture of the person and pressed it. I looked down and my arms and legs were attached to my normal body again. I looked around and could see Keisha and Wanda standing up and brushing themselves off. Then I saw the freeze and the rest of the class. They were back to their own shapes, but were still miniature. We ran toward one another, and Miss Frizzle took a satchel off her shoulder. No more Iron Man for me, I said. First order of business is to get out of this trash chute before Mr. Broom empties it into a dumpster. Quick, put these on. The freeze was taking some half boots out of a bag. They were toes only with a barb magnet attached to the front. The individual boots buckled right over the front of our shoes. They weren't that heavy. Then the freeze took out some gloves with the same metal bar attached to the front. We all began putting the boots and gloves on. These are grippers, said the freeze. The bottoms are equipped with the strong magnets. I had my boots on. I tried to lift my foot and nearly fell over. It was sticking to the metal bottom of the chute. You need to peel your foot off slowly sideways. The freeze explained. That's when I noticed that the sides of the grippers were curved. I could roll the gripper off the metal to break its hold. How are these boots and gloves going to help us? Asked Tim. Just watch and learn, the freeze called out. With the clang, he reached the edge of the floor, put one foot up on the metal wall, and began walking straight up the steep slope. We were just getting used to walking in the grippers when we heard an awful grating sound. Top of the trash chute opened up. More garbage began tumbling down the chute. He's emptying the garbage, screamed Phoebe. Run before we get buried. We all began shakily moving across the floor. We all were waving our arms in crazy circles to keep our balance. One by one, we made it to the wall of the chute and started walking straight up. It was hard work. It was such hard work that about halfway up, we reached the little ledge and the freeze called a halt. I leaned against the wall and took out the scavenger hunt list. Hey, I said, I think I see another answer. Magni can run motors, but you know that is not all. With these special boots and gloves, they help workers climb the wall. I wrote down workers climb steel walls wearing industrial grippers. Only 3 more questions to go. 3 more questions to go. I was so excited I felt my energy come back. Let's keep going, guys, I said. We don't want to throw this opportunity away. With the garbage, we began climbing up the rest of the trash chute. The Phoebe was the last person out. We sat on the floor, took off our boots, and handed them to the freeze. She somehow crammed them all in her bag. My legs and arms felt like I'd been playing kickball all day. We were all lying on the ground, rubbing our legs and arms too. We don't want to sit here collecting dust, said the freeze. Up, class, we've got to win the race. We painfully got to our feet. We looked to the right. We looked to the left. We are so small, we could only see endless walls. Does anyone remember where the trash chute is in relation to our classroom? Asked the freeze. We all looked blank. You're saying we are lost? Miss Frizzle, said Ralphie. Well, let's just say it would help if we knew if our classroom was on the north side of the school building or the south side, Miss Frizzle replied. We are all silent. Then we may be lost, said the freeze. We started to panic, and I thought of something. Hey, remember The signs on the walls of our room, the ones left over from a geography unit, they said north, south, east, and west. That's right, Carlos, said DA. The one over Miss Frizzle's desk was west, and the windows were north, said Tim. Since our room is at the end of the hall, our room must be in the northwest part of the school, said Arnold. He looked really excited. Good calculating, class, said the Freeze. But how does that help us? Arnold's smile disappeared. He started thinking, if we had a compass, we could find out which way is northwest and go there. He said, smiling again. But we don't have a compass, I pointed out. Arnold's smile went away again. I know, said. We can build our own compass. Miss Freeze had a cup and cork, but no magnetized needle. We needed all three to make a compass. Something was pricking in the back of my mind. Suddenly I remembered. I've got one, I shouted. I pinned my shirt closed with my magnetized needle. I carefully pulled it out of the buttonhole. I knew if I shook it, the domains might resettle and the magnetism would be gone. Good work, Carlos. I always said you were a sharp one. I'll fill the cup with water, said Keisha. She ran to the drinking fountain. There was luckily a leak coming out the bottom. Keisha filled the cup and ran back. Miss Frizzle handed Keisha the cork and the needles. Keisha floated the flat disc of cork on top of the water. Then she carefully set my needle on the cork. It spun around a little and then finally pointed down the hole. Aha! The needle will always point north-south because it follows the line of Earth's magnetic field. Wow, said Ralphie. Magnets really are everywhere. Even Earth is a magnet. That's exactly right, said the Freeze. Now we know our class is on the north side of the building, and I know that the trash chute is on the south side. The base of the needle is pointing at the trash chute, so the tip must be pointing north. Follow that needle. Now we have the answer to number 8, said Phoebe. Scavenger hunt question number 1. When you are lost, you look at me. On my face, there is an S, W, N, and E. Only with magnetism will I point the right way. If you trust me, I won't lead you astray. It's what we just built. A compass, of course, I said I wrote. Compass uses a magnet to show which way is north. They may feel Earth's magnetic field. The pieces of magnetism have been found in certain creatures, such as bees and butterflies. These animals may be living compasses. Chapter 9. Hey, before we take off for the other side of the building, we should read the next riddle, I said to the rest of the class. Deep inside a VCR and TV, there are many magnets to be found. How do magnets play a part in recording tapes of sight and sound? Tapes of sight and sound. Wanda asked. Like movie? You're probably right, Wanda, Tim said. Let's think about it while we are on the move. We took off, thinking about how magnets might record tapes. It was a really tough question. As we ran down the hall, we came to an intersection. The needle showed us we needed to keep going straight. As we ran down the hall, we could see the door to Mr. O'Neilly's class ahead. By the time we got there, we were panting. We stood in the doorway and looked inside. At the front of the classroom, a videotape was playing. Our scavenger riddle, DA exclaimed. Put on these magnet detecting glasses and tell me what you see, said the Freeze. She was handing out sets of dark glasses. I put mine on, looked inside Mr. O'Neilly's classroom. On all the desks were bright green shapes. The bright green things must be magnets, I exclaimed. I'll give you a green light for that, said the Freeze. Look at the video, said Wanda. The entire TV set was covered in bright green. TV set and VCR had bunches of green blobs in them too. Stacked on top of the VCR were several videotapes, and they were green as well. Wow. Those all magnets? Yes, magnets are used to power the speakers and the motor, and they also create the pictures on the screen. So are TV sets magnetic? TV TVs contain about 2 pounds of magnets, which makes them rather attractive, joked the Freeze. What about the tapes? What's the answer to the riddle? Miss Freeze continued. All the sound and the pictures are stored in billions of tiny magnets that are stuck in the tape. That's great, I said. The videotape is magnetic. The picture and sound are stored on magnets on the tape. The video in Mr. O'Neilly's room was explaining compasses. Great, Wanda whispered. They must still be behind us. We are almost done. Okay then, said the Freeze. We need to answer the last question and get back to the science lab, or Mr. O'Neilly's class will win. What a repelling idea, I said. The thought of Mr. O'Neilly's class winning again made us all nervous. At that moment, we heard something dreadful. Okay, class, said Mr. O'Neilly, we have answered all the questions we can. Let's proceed in an orderly fashion to the science lab. We flattened ourselves back against the hallway wall as we heard the sound of chairs being pushed back. Giant footsteps approaching the door. We are still so small. How would we ever catch up? Chapter 10. As soon as Mr. O'Neilly's class had filed out the door, the Freeze said, Carlos, do you have the list? I waved it in the air. Freeze pointed toward the science lab and said, let's go. The last answer is at the science lab. We started down the hall, and as we ran, we felt ourselves getting bigger. As soon as we reached our full size, we rounded the corner and caught up with Mr. O'Neilly's class. Wait a minute. Mr. O'Neilly called out loudly. Remember, no running in the hall? He didn't look happy to see us. I stopped running and started walking as fast as I could. Someone was keeping pace with me. It was Andy. His mouth was shut tight. His eyebrows were pulled down over his eyes. We rounded the other corner. Andrew and I were in front of the crowd, still neck and neck. Nobody was just saying a word, and I could hear Andrew start to breathe hard. Then I saw the science lab. Faster, I thought. We were so close to finally beating Mr. O'Neilly's class. Andrew and I came to a stop in front of the science lab door. It was closed, but my hand was first on the knob. I turned it. It was locked. I rattled the knob, but it did no good. He let me. Pushing my hand aside, he tried to open the door, but it still wouldn't budge. It is locked, he said, looking at me with surprise. I shrugged. I guess we can't get in, said Mr. O'Neilly with a chuckle. He and the Freeze looked at each other, and I saw him wink. They knew it would be locked. They were up to something. There must be a way, I said to Andrew. I began feeling around the edges of the door. He got down on his knee and looked under the door. There's something there, he said. I got down next to him. It's a key, I said. But how do we get it, he asked. We looked at each other. That's when I remembered there was still one riddle left. Last question asked, Skip and Jelly. You're almost done, but you have come to a closed door. If you can use a magnetic logic, find pizza and soda and more. We need a magnet. We said at the same time, anyone have a magnet? It's a crowd of kids behind us. Someone passed a bar magnet forward. I gently slid the magnet under the door. And felt the ping as the key stuck to it. I pulled out the magnet and held it up to Andrew. He removed the key from the magnet. It fit right into the lock. Together we pushed the door open and stepped into the lab. Tables were covered with hot pizza. I guess it's a tie, said Andrew with a smile. I smiled back. We'll just have to have a joint pizza party, said Mr. O'Neilly. Andrew and I shook hands, and behind us both classes cheered. We had finally won something well tied, and it would be even more fun to eat pizza with Mr. O'Neilly's class. Hey, what's that on the refrigerator? Miss Frizzle asked. Mr. O'Neilly, oh, just some bus toy I found on the floor. He looked embarrassed. I was going to put it in the lost and found, he said, handing toward the miniature magic school bus. Actually, that's mine, says. She plucked the tiny bus off the refrigerator door, gave Mr. O'Neilly a big smile. Thank you so much for finding it for me. I know I can always trust you to tidy up. Mr. O'Neilly looked very proud. The end.